Ah, yes. Boston has entered the chat, presumably. That is correct. Welcome into the Salem 5 Studios. Whole combo with myself, a whole combo. Travis Thomas here, Adam Pellerin, Kasey Hudson. Just another manic Monday, June 30th. Hello, my friends.
Hello.
Hello.
My
goodness. How's that for
What's in that cup, buddy?
Yeah.
Right. Well, both of you guys, like, the
He's
singing,
the only one with a cup.
volume.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say the singing, the volume, the energy. I felt it as I came in from downstairs.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
You could hear it, too.
I heard it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys got some bars. That's great.
We do.
You guys?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a thing. But listen, we're having a great Monday. So is Morgan Geekie. I mean, while you were sleeping, bro got paid. 6 years, 36 M's. Let's get into it. We have the wonderful Kasey Hudson here. I want to talk to you about this and the draft. There's just so much hockey to get into.
Thankfully.
So let's get into it now. Before we do it, jump in the convo with us. Please email us, thechat@nesson.com. You can tweet at us using that hashtag NessonChat, or you can call us, 617-790-0928. We want to hear from you. What do you think of Morgan Geekie re-signing? What do you think of the draft? Talk to us. Case, talk to us. Let's start with geeks. So what I'm thinking is, I told this to Adam. I said, you know, it feels like a safe deal, which I don't like saying that because it feels kind of anticlimactic.
Right.
But if you can get the production he gave you last season, career high in goals, career high in assists, if you can get that production moving forward and it's consistent and it's sustainable, then this deal really is a bargain. But if he's not as good and he sort of regresses, so to speak, then this deal doesn't hurt you because it's not some monstrous deal where you overpaid. Does that make sense? So I think it's a win-win for both sides, and it feels safe to me. Am I being fair?
I think you're being fair to say that it's safe. When I first saw it, I didn't really particularly lean towards safe in terms of like, will he or won't he produce again? It was more so the fact that you're talking about a really humble guy, comes from a very humble family. Hockey is his life. I don't think he was looking for that much. Did he deserve it? Absolutely. But in terms of like where this team is going, what has to make sense, what a retool looks like in terms of like pieces that probably have to come in, what the frenzy might look like on Tuesday, you're just talking about a guy that like needed to get the right kind of payment and understands that there's still more in the tank, because Geekie was kind of a lifeline for the Seattle Kraken when they made this like surprise playoff appearance. And I remember being really excited to think, what is he going to do with another team? Kind of did a good plug and play for playoffs the last time for the Bruins. And then there was that little bit of a drop off, but he's somebody that can kind of pick up on the rhythm of his line mates. So the expectation, I think, makes the numbers make sense.
I love the deal. I do too.
Yeah.
And, you know, for all the reasons you stated, but also the fact that, you know, every year in the NHL, he's shown improvement.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
you talk about his time with the Seattle Kraken. Those were career numbers, the 9 goals, right, that he had that year. That was a career high. When he got to Boston, 17 goals, 22 assists. Last year, 33 and 24. He's done nothing but improve since he's gotten into the NHL. And I think you take that a step further and you look at what he did with David Pastrnak last year, right?
Insane.
The chemistry that they developed. And you look at the numbers since January 1st. David Pastrnak tops in the league in goals and points. Morgan Geekie was 6th in the league in goals, right? Now, the only thing that I would look at is the shooting percentage, right? Shooting percentage was through the roof. It was 22% for the year, which was 2nd in the league to Braden Point. From that January 1st mark on, it was 33%, right? That is unsustainable over the course of a full season. With that said, if you get 20, 25 goals from this guy, you're happy with that
Very
too,
happy.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very happy. And I'm glad you mentioned the shooting percentage, because that's kind of something that Marco Sturm talked about when he was like, I can't go into what I'm looking for entirely coming up here, but I know that we need to get more shots on net, more pucks towards the net. And you're talking about a guy that fulfilled that and can take that to the next step in the upcoming season. Something else too, though, like we love that rhythm and the chemistry that he picked up with David Pastrnak. I mean, a really hard guy to kind of execute feeds off of. But when things got a little hairy for the Boston Bruins, you saw them kind of try to redistribute the scoring opportunities. So you can move Geekie around too to kind of try to ignite a different line if need be, whether that's the second line
Lengthen the
or
lineup.
anything else.
That's what Adam, so I suggested, I said, well, listen, maybe it's Geekie Pasta, that's your 1-2 combo. And Adam was like, no. He's with you on that
Well,
too.
especially if wherever we take this number 7 pick, you know, if we're looking at him joining the lineup, immediately people are talking about him being a first-line center. So if that becomes the case, then Geekie needs to be your driver on that second line.
We'll get to the draft in a minute. I want to stay here with free agency. Also, by the way, fans were weighing in when Geekie did sign this deal, so we'll get to that as well. But I just want to ask you now, with free agency starting, what else is this team going to do? As you see, like, needs. They're 17 mil with the cap. I mean, like, what are they going to do? We talked earlier about a defenseman, a right shot defenseman. They need to add maybe some more forwards. How do you sort of see free agency playing out?
Well, for starters, you want to add to the scoring. You want to make sure that it's just not resting on the shoulders of Pasta and Geekie. And, you know, we want to see more out of Lindholm, but realistically, you need somebody else that you can count on to be another 20-plus goal scorer. And Marco Sturm being a two-way winger himself, you know, I feel like he can have an eye for a guy that can come in and help and be just as dynamic, right wing, left wing, whatever the case may be. They're somewhat solidifying their centers. They went heavy in picking up centers in the draft, and I feel like I've beat a dead horse here when I've said the league is changing. The expectation on young guys to come in and make an impact, it's very much heightened. So when you go that heavy in the draft with centers, you're looking at guys who are going to be battling for that position within the next 2 years. I think a really dynamic winger who can help pick up points. Of course, the power play is a huge topic of conversation, but I just need someone north of 20 goals that can come into this lineup and be a leader.
Yeah, and Brock Besser is a guy that might fit that bill too, right?
I'd say so.
Somebody who could come in here and produce right away in the right environment. And I think to your point, you know, the center position has been a discussion in Boston for a long time, right? Because you had Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci. Who's next? They haven't had that guy, right? A couple of years ago, Jack Studnicka, maybe he's the guy. Well, that didn't end up working out. And so they end up drafting these centers. And mind you, they did not have the number 7 overall pick, right? To sort of build their organization up. I mean, this is the highest draft pick the Bruins have had since Dougie Hamilton. You know, obviously you look back at Tyler Seguin back in the day. You haven't had a top 10 pick like this in a long time. And so now you have James Hagens. I do want to point out, we don't have a breaking news sounder, do we? There it is. Okay, so this just coming out from the Bruins, making it official, signing, agreeing to terms with Henry Jokiharju.
Love this so much.
All right, so for a 3-year contract, annual hit of $3 million. Also agreed to terms with Johnny Beecher on a 1-year deal. And then Michael DiPietro is a goaltender, you know, spending time down in Providence. Let's start with Jokiharju, right shot defenseman. They needed that. They brought him over, obviously, at the trade deadline last year. So now you have some more depth on the blue line.
Absolutely, and I was a big fan of Jokiharju coming over here for what I saw him do with a struggling, suffering Buffalo Sabres team. Of course, I'll get off my soapbox about JJ Peterka, but it's the eye that he has in terms to help kind of start anchoring a play to get things going, and it's really hard to get the puck past him on the blue line when he's trying to keep everything in front of him. That's what I like about Jokiharju. We started to see that towards the end of the season. I mean, through 3 games, picked up 3 assists to close out a very rough season for this team with a lot of young guys in front of him too. So to see that nothing disturbs the eloquence and the composure of his game, that's somebody you want to grow in your system. So I'm very excited about that.
Okay, so early on here, but we're feeling good about the Bruins offseason thus far.
Well, before the start of free agency. We'll see what happens.
That's what I said. It's early.
It is early.
If nothing too psychotic happens on Tuesday, we all hold our breath from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So.
Let's hear from the fans here. They weighed in on the Geekie news. I want to get to that before I talk to you guys about the draft. So the fans, of course, excited. Let's go, baby. This is from Grace. So a lot of excitement here, Case, from the fans. Alex tweets, Morgan's got me geeking, us too. Adam and I, as you saw when you walked in, we've been geeking all day.
Again, I heard it downstairs.
Yeah, so we're excited for this and what the Bruins are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even to speak further to Geekie before we move on, like I said, great family. I got a chance to cover his brother
Connor.
for 7 seconds in Tampa Bay. And like, these guys they breathe hockey. And when they're not doing hockey, it's all about family and it's all about, you know, just kind of pivoting their mindset. So the humility on all of it, I think, just needs to be
and playing
out.
some backyard baseball too.
Oh,
Big baseball fans.
They
back
are.
In the day, right? And it was great to see them play each other, you know, for the first time this past year. And it actually came on the mom's trip. You know, I had the fortune of being on that trip.
I remember
in Tampa, sat on the bench with Morgan and his mom and got a chance to talk to Connor as well. So, cool. Great family.
Seriously.
And
that's
again,
cool.
Morgan Geekie loves it in Boston, clearly, and he's going to be here for a long time. So that's a really good thing.
If you're geeked up about Geekie, email us at chat@nesson.com, tweet at us using the hashtag NessonChat, call us 617-790-0928. Okay, let's transition to the draft.
Pivot.
I love this. I said this to Adam earlier, that George covered Boston College hockey all year, right? He would come into here and talk my ear off about this James Hagens kid, like literally daily. He's gonna be the number 1 pick. He's so great. He's blah, 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 right? And then I couldn't believe, and I need you to explain how this happened, that he was there at 7. I couldn't believe it. They talked about this guy being the #1 pick. And I get sliding a little. It happens in all drafts. Like, sometimes guys slide. But to 7? What the hell? So I need to know, because I looked up, like, researching why did he slide. I couldn't find anything other than, well, he's a little smaller. He's a little under 6 feet. He's a little under 200 pounds. It's like, he's young. He's going to get bigger. I don't understand he can grow into his frame. This was a steal. Am I wrong? This was a steal for the Bruins.
Oh, you're not wrong. I think it's funny that everyone got so hung up on the size. But for me, again, what jumped off the page, this last 2 drafts, USHL players were kind of like the most dominating for getting picked up in that first round. Things kind of pivoted back to OHL players and Canadian players being like the hot theme to pick up on. And then you're talking about guys by like a millimeter that were more NHL ready than James Hagens. There's still question marks on whether or not he needs to go back to BC for 1 more year. I mean, Porter Matone was a guy that I was screaming about because the size, he's already 200 pounds. He already kind of has such an NHL capability to him. And a lot of the guys in front of him already have that DNA as well. Hagens is just kind of dancing a very fine line on whether or not he's ready, and that's why I think the slide happened. Not so much in pertinence to his size, but more so the fact of, like, we saw Celebrini jump off. We saw, you know, Leonard play playoff hockey at the NHL level after wrapping up a BC season. So I just think that, like, again, being NHL ready, like, the soonest to have the capability of doing that is kind of a degree of separation. And yeah, I think that the size played into it a little bit, but Canada dominated this draft.
Yeah, no question about that. Just take a look at the first round and see all the junior hockey, right? Like players OHL and Q in the Q as well. But in terms of Hagens, you know, another reason that he fell to where he did was because he didn't have a jump off the page type of statistical year at Boston College, like Macklin Celebrini had the year before at Boston University. And reason being, in part, was because he was playing with 2 of the best players in the country.
Who ended up jumping straight into the NHL.
Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault. So with all that said, still a point per game player, right?
Yeah.
You know, 37 points in 37 games, that'll get the job done. We had the opportunity to talk to Greg Brown about Hagens, and he, you know, was singing his praises. Obviously, great skill set, very heady player, can transport pucks through the neutral zone, can get defenders off balance and create mismatches. You know, very cerebral, and that's what you need in the center position. Now, the center position in the Boston Bruins is not an easy position to play. We talked at length about that. We talked to Brick about that. You know, the responsibilities defensively that come with that position, and so that's why, you know, you look at a young player. It's like, all right, can you handle that, right? Because we talked about Matt Poitras, you know, a year ago about, you know, being a teenager trying to, you know, play at the NHL level, playing that position for the Bruins. And that's why, you know, they moved him to wing to try and maybe free up his scoring a little bit last year. And so, you know, obviously he went back down to Providence. So, you know, you're excited about the pick. You know he's got great potential, but do you want to really rush him into the NHL? The Bruins do not want to do that if he's not ready. So, you could see him go back to Boston College. Now, at the end of next season, could be talking a different story where he's signing the professional contract. Who knows where the Bruins are in the standings? Maybe he's a part of a playoff run next year. But, you know, time will tell.
You've heard our take on Hagens. How about Don Sweeney? He weighed in on drafting this kid as well. Take a listen.
Donnie, what excites you about adding James Hagen, who you picked at 7?
Well, he's a special player. You know, obviously he's led the program during his time there. The production is at a high level. A world gold medal champion in the World Juniors against his peer group across the the entire world. Translated into a pretty successful college year as a freshman, playing on a top line in a top program. Driven kid, loves the game, has a real passion for it, and a skill set that's pretty unique.
When you had an opportunity to talk to a lot of these guys during the course of the draft before you made some of your selections, was there something about some of the conversations that you had with James that stood out?
I think just the competitive nature of him, coupled with the, obviously the skills that he's worked so hard to continue to, to craft at the highest level, holds himself to that standard where he wants to be the best player, excels at the moments when, when the game is on the line. Again, World Junior Tournament's a great example of that, but you look past the previous successes that the program has had, and he's led the way. So he's excelled against his peers, and he's a driven player with a high skill set.
Oh, Case, last word on this. Adam Sandler did announce a pick. I didn't hate that. I thought that was really cool.
No, I thought it was super sick. I was a big Happy Gilmore fan in college. college too. So
Are you excited for Happy Gilmore 2?
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not.
That
I
was
don't match the
underwhelming.
excitement.
That was an underwhelming question.
Yeah, the
I don't match.
sequels.
It's like
Yeah.
he wanted me to say, okay, never mind.
Unless
No,
we're
I
talking
mean,
about Star Wars. Or
we're all
something,
gonna
the
watch
sequels
it.
usually fall
We're all
flat.
gonna watch
Indiana
it.
Jones, good sequels.
I think it's
Rocky
gonna be,
2?
Comedy sequels. Hangover 2.
Nah, Hangover, the OG was better.
But like
of
they tried
course.
to like legit replicate what was so funny in the
Yes.
first one. Like you gotta cheat.
But you know what? I am looking for it. I am going to.
We're all gonna watch it.
absolutely watch it.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nothing can ever replicate the original, right?
That's right.
It can't. It just can't. But
It's true.
It's going to be fun.
You know where I exercised this was Coming to America 2. I was like, why are they remaking this? But I'm going in,
Yeah.
low expectations. It made me laugh 3 or 4 times. That's
Still
it.
haven't seen it.
Don't.
See,
Don't waste your time.
All right.
All right, back to hockey. So, Case, the rest of the draft, how did you feel about for the Bruins?
the rest of the draft, I actually think that they did a pretty great job. William Moore, you'll love this if you don't know already. Classic piano is
There we
something
go.
that he is really good at outside of hockey. But what's cool is like I remember growing up, my parents used to talk about how instruments translate into play, and
Mm-hmm.
classic piano specifically, just because of how intricate and like how complex learning those notes are. You're talking about a guy who's going to be pretty good at anticipation, pretty good at picking up patterns and strategy. And if you can lay that on an opponent,
Yeah.
somebody that you can read and anticipate their movement, then that's going to come in super handy, especially in a sport like hockey. And then
Sure.
more importantly, a lot of the keynotes next to him was the fact that he is so deceptive when it comes to passing. That's where I thought I was like hot as a soccer player, because I
Yeah.
used to always try to be tricky and deceptive. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm going to love this
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Like the look off passes, and you're not trying too hard to make it happen. Good stature on him. And I think that the hype behind Moore is going to really pay out.
Also a Boston College guy. I might
That's
add.
Yeah.
right.
And I see what you did there, the key notes.
Oh,
Right?
see?
Very smooth.
The other thing that stands out, it's kind of funny, you mentioned classically trained piano. Fraser Minton, who the Bruins got in the Carlo trade, also
Oh, wow.
plays piano.
We're
have a
getting all of
musical
these
team.
cerebrally
Yeah.
So I
insane
wonder if that's
kids.
the
Is that a word?
Bruins-
Cerebral? It is today.
It is today.
Monday, any word I want to be a word is a word.
On Monday.
take it.
At this time.
I'll take it.
Exactly.
Yeah. The afternoon shows, you can't get away with that.
Not at all.
So the Bruins will beat you on the ice and then have a great concert after the game with
Yeah.
their players, like just
That's a whole
getting it done.
thing.
I love it.
Yep. Then you got Cooper Simpson. I'm going to jump past Liam Pettersson for a second because development
Yeah,
has been a huge
sure.
thing. We're probably
Yeah.
not going to see him for some time.
Okay.
Hooper committed to North Dakota, should be playing alongside Will Zellers, who is now a Boston Bruins prospect. So those little intricate ties and chemistry and connections and relationships, something the new head coach kind of has really harped on. You're talking about them catching a rhythm in college and then potentially coming over here together. The Minnesota ties have been very strong in terms of the prospect pool and guys that should potentially be wearing a Beast sweater and helping out. With Simpson, you get a lot of notes about him working well in tight spaces. Of course, I'm going to take it back to the Lightning. I think of Braden Point immediately. Somebody who can be manipulative with the puck with little to no space. That is something to be excited about. And then to already have chemistry with a potential guy down the line, I think it all pans out nicely. So there's ties here.
I see here in my notes, development camp starts today for the Bruins as well.
News.
Anything we should be keeping our eyes or ears open for?
Yeah, I actually had skating yesterday and saw all the signs for it. The guys had dinner there. Zellers, I mean, like I said, he's going to be a key guy to keep
Okay.
an eye on. We got him through the Colorado acquisition.
Okay.
Andre Gassot, I always call him Andrew for some reason. If you're talking about leveling up the power play, and one of the cutest things about a power play execution is a one-timer. This kid's
Yes.
one-timer has been talked about quite a bit.
Okay.
Coming out of BC as well. And then Beckett Hendrickson, love another Minnesota kid. You're talking about somebody who really eyes the passing lanes and is really good with setups. Minnesota Gophers, they've had so many guys come out of that school over the past 5 years that have been extremely impactful in the NHL. We know who my favorite is, Matthew Nyes. Snuggerud went into the league for the Blues and helped out in the playoffs. Who would have thought? So those are a couple of guys on my list for development.
Adam, you agree?
Yeah, I would. I would add Dean Letourneau to that list, obviously, after his first year at Boston College. We talked to Greg Brown about him, saying, you know what, like, it's hard for those bigger guys to sort of, especially a young guy like
Sure.
He needs
Letourneau
time with his
sort of
size,
grow
yeah.
into his right. And so you'll see his second development camp. By the way, all those draft picks, for the most part, I think, will be there, right? And
Yeah.
Hagens and more. And Don's Loshmelis is another guy, played at UMass, was very good in the World Championships. So there's a number of players to watch, and development camps a great opportunity for them to sort of get the sort of pro feel, right? And Greg Brown, who we talked to last week, 2 weeks ago on Hockey Hub, it's hard to keep track of time, was talking about how much he loves his players taking part, and there are a lot of Boston College players who will be a part of Dev Camp.
Kasey Hudson, we appreciate you for joining us. You've done such a great
Case.
job with all the draft coverage. We appreciate everything you do. And we appreciate you for rolling with us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Don't go anywhere. More to come when we come back. Roll with us. Get the latest up-to-date live Boston sports headlines, daily dose of trending sports, social topics, every Monday through Friday. Boston Has Entered the Chat. 8 a.m. on Nesson, 9 a.m. right here on Nesson Nation. Roll with us.
Can you explain why you made the selection that you did tonight?
Yeah, we've been watching Hugo for a long time. He's obviously been on everybody's radar, I think, for a long time. And then, followed his year with a great Real Madrid organization and team and closely, and watched him in all the, U18s and those types of things. And just a big fan of how he plays. He's tough. He's hard playing. He cuts. He goes after the ball. He competes. He's got all the intangibles of a winning basketball player. And there's things he can get better at, just like everybody else at that age. But competitiveness is not, it's at a high level.
Is the plan to bring him over?
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, and Brad Stevens we trust, because we don't know a damn thing about this guy.
That's a great way to kick off the segment. Hey, we're going to talk about this guy we've never heard before.
You know what's actually, I'm going to show you how sick I am in the head, Adam, is I'm hearing Brad Stevens talk about this kid who's 19, Hugo Gonzalez, they take in the first round.
Yeah.
And he goes, we've had our eye on him for a long time. And he starts naming all these tournaments from when this kid was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I need to go home and make my son and daughter shoot jumpers all day long. How long have you been watching this kid? He's 19. We've been watching him for a long time. What does that mean? Was he 10?
Millie Pellerin has a summer league game tonight.
Oh.
So I'm getting my 10-year-old out in the backyard putting up J's. I'm just saying.
Maybe we could run a camp together.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Could. Yeah.
Daddy daycare, but like sports. Like you gotta. It's pitching, it's shooting, pitching only with the left.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you just tie the right hand behind their back. You can only throw with the left. Only shoot with the layups with the left. Too. Dribble with the left?
Yes,
yeah.
All left.
All left.
But Dad, I'm right-handed. Do the drill, as we tell you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Back to Hugo.
We'll call it the lefty camp. But it has nothing to do with politics. It's just...
Hugo Gonzalez.
Yes, okay.
All right, here's a few places I want to go with him.
Yeah.
He's 6'6", 205.
Yep.
You heard Brad Stevens there. Like, he was on a loaded team, Adam, okay? Because we're going to get into the numbers in a second. But in terms of measurables, 6'5", 6'6", 205, true point guard. Mm-hmm. He can guard 1 through 3.
Right.
So he's a versatile guy, has to work on shooting. Who doesn't when they're young? Can pass. I think it will work in terms of development. But here's a little concern. I'm not going to lie. On draft night, I'm like, okay, I get it. International kid. We don't know anything. Some of these guys, there's hype coming in about them, and then they stink. Some of them, there's no hype, and they turn into the next Luka or Jokic. But I'm looking at the numbers. 29 games played. He averaged 14 minutes per, Adam.
Yeah.
5 points a game, 2 rebounds a game. Like, that's not going to get the fan base excited. But then you do understand he played on a stacked roster, and he was literally a teenager amongst grown men.
I think the fan base understands what having the 28th overall pick means.
Fair.
Right? Because you talk about the numbers. If this were a top 10 pick, top 12, I'd be more concerned about that and say, wow, what are we missing?
Right.
But I'm not as concerned because of what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Because he was on a stacked Real Madrid team with a lot of veterans.
And he's
19
young.
years old. He's young, right? And the numbers actually in 14 minutes aren't bad,
Yeah.
right? 5 points per game. If you're not getting that much playing time.
Right.
What do you expect?
So he's making an impact when he isn't.
Yeah, but I think it's also about, the other thing you were talking about was defensively, right?
Yes.
And the versatility, right, at 6'6". And, now at just 19 years old, he's going to grow, right? And by grow, I mean get stronger.
That's right.
And we're going to see him. We're going to see him in the Summer League. He's on the Summer League roster. Vegas Summer League kicks off on July 11th. And so you're going to get to see him play. Again, you take the Summer League for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But you look at the Celtics situation and the opportunity that's there for a number of different players. With the Jason Tatum injury, with the Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis trade, Al Horford probably leaving in free agency as well.
Yeah.
We would think.
Yes.
Luke Cornett probably not coming back either.
It'll be a new look team.
It'll be a new look
outside
team.
of your core.
Right. Now,
right?
the prior guys I just mentioned,
Yes.
Cornett and Horford, you need to address your size, right?
Right.
He doesn't address that. But with all of that said, there's still opportunity there.
Yeah,
so
there
if he
is.
shines brightly in the Summer League,
Yeah.
all right, now we're looking at training camp. Now we're looking at preseason.
Right.
And then who knows? But, the good thing is youth is on his side. He's 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what he's all about.
I am too. And you mentioned how this team needs size on the interior,
Yeah.
and I agree. There's actually a name I want to bring up in a second. But talking about Hugo here, he's not the interior size you need, but I think at 6'6", in this NBA, and they always talk about positionless, right?
Yeah,
like that's
sure.
a new thing in the NBA last decade.
The Warriors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he fits that. At 6'6", being able to guard a point guard, being able to guard a two, being able to guard a wing. I think that is some versatility there, size-wise, not on the interior.
No.
Interiorly speaking,
Yeah.
for the Celtics, did you see DeAndre Ayton actually
Yeah.
got bought out? He's available. Now, some of this is maybe a pipe dream from me because he's expensive.
Right.
But at this stage of his career, I wonder, we've seen Brad Stevens finesse and fleece people and do all kinds of stuff. I wonder if Brad Stevens can work something with this guy and say, listen, I know Tatum's out this year, but if you actually aren't a loser like most people think you are and you want to win, come on with us. Take a little less money. There's a need for DeAndre Ayton on this team. Here's another thing I'll throw out, Adam, that is a little concerning to me, and we actually have a voicemail from this, is what will the Celtics look like offensively? Is this going to be the same team that we've seen the last however many years now come out and just chuck up threes every night?
Maybe.
I don't think it is,
No?
because the personnel isn't there.
Yeah.
Norman, who loves the show, we love you too, Norman, called and asked this very question, and I think he's right. Take a listen.
Okay, this is Norman speaking. Comment: with the new roster, are the Celtics going to have the same style of playing? No offensive games, only three-point shooting? Thank you.
Fair question.
You did bring in Anthony Simons, who shoots 36% from the field. The question is, from three, I should say. The question is, is he going to be long for this roster? You still got guys that could shoot.
Right.
Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White.
So you're telling me they are going to chuck
Sam
threes?
Hauser is still on the roster, right? So, yeah, I think so. I don't think that's – I look at DeAndre Ayton, and isn't he kind of a dinosaur in this game?
Yes.
Right? He doesn't
Yes.
shoot perimeter.
No, he doesn't.
Right? Those guys don't exist anymore.
Okay, so to my point,
Yeah.
I don't think you should come out chucking threes. I just don't. Now this is a layered thing.
Yeah.
Because can Joe Mazzulla, I hate to say this, can he really coach?
Right.
Are we coming out just chucking threes? Are we going to have a different system now because the personnel is different? So I guess my point being, if you bring in a DeAndre Ayton, you're telling all of us we're not playing that style anymore. You with me?
Yeah, I understand.
If you're right and it's kind of business as usual, then you don't get a guy like that because he is archaic in style.
Yeah. That brings me to another question. Is this the most challenging offseason that Brad Stevens has had as tenure as front office exec? Probably, right?
Well, what about that first one going from coach to that? I wonder. I would have to go back and look.
Yeah, I'd have
but
to
I
as
bet you
well.
that was probably a tough, because you had the transition as well.
Yeah, you did.
But this is a
without
tough
Tatum,
one.
right? And trying to plan ahead,
Yes.
knowing that Tatum's going to come back, while also trying to get under that second apron, which they were able to do.
Yes.
And now the question is, what are you next year?
That's what I'm saying.
Right? What are you?
I don't know.
I mean, clearly it's a bridge year.
Yes.
Right? Because you're not going to win the title next year.
No.
Right? You're not a title contender.
The goal's probably playoffs.
Unless Tatum makes a miraculous recovery.
Well, they claim,
comes back.
They allegedly, if this team makes the postseason, he could.
Yeah.
I'm using air quotes to be available for
It's
the
way
But
too
why would you
early
do
to
that? I wouldn't
tell
do it.
that, right?
I wouldn't even do it.
At this point in the process?
I wouldn't even do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even entertain it. I actually, look, I think we're going to learn a lot about this team outside of Derek White and Jaylen Brown that we already know. But I have all my eyes on Joe Mazzulla, man.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, what are you going to do, bro?
He's not going to lose his job this year, though. With this roster? Really? You think he could be on the hot seat?
I ain't saying the seat is hot, but I'm saying it could be preheating.
He won a title, and he doesn't have his best player. How could he be on the hot seat?
Could be preheating.
Wow.
Could be preheating.
That's a take.
Hey, we're hot right here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Roll with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Yeah! Welcome back to Boston Has Entered the Chat. We should do a Boston Has Entered the Chat during commercial break behind the scene for Boston Has Entered the Chat. That would be fantastic.
Like for our last day at Nesson?
Yeah, we'd have to figure out the rating.
We'd have to massage that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe the title.
Not so behind the scenes, but just a little behind the scenes.
Like Boston Has Entered the Chat uncut, something like that.
Yeah,
kind of
sort of uncut.
Yeah,
right.
just to give you an idea that some things are coming.
Yeah, uncut enough.
Time now for what's trending in the world of sports. We start with the Bruins. Morgan Geekie, while you were sleeping, 6 years, 36 M's. I love this move, Adam. Do
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. We talked about it earlier. I mean, obviously, coming off a career season of 33 goals and 24 assists, showing improvement year in and year out.
Yep.
The maturation of Morgan Geekie. He's a cerebral player on and off the ice. You hear him talk about his game, his teammates' game, after wins, after losses.
Yep.
A good character guy to have in the room. Right?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the Bruins culture and how for many years it was led by Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron, a lot of veteran guys coming in. Now you have sort of a transition after the Brad Marchand trade, after getting some new younger faces on the roster to keep a veteran, even though he's only 27 years old.
right.
And Morgan Geekie, who's been here for a couple of years, that's important as well.
Yeah, and we saw the tweet there from the Bruins, hey, return to the Geek Squad. But, of course, the fans weighed in, too. Sure. They are excited. I just think everyone's excited to see this guy. Career high, 33 goals. Here it is. Let's go, baby. Grace getting involved with her tweet. We feel the same way, Grace. And then Alex tweets, Morgan's got me geeking. Us too, my friend. I think this is just a safe, I hate to use the word safe because it's sort of anticlimactic.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
I just think if he lives up to what he already gave us last season, and that is sustainable, then this deal's a bargain.
It's an absolute bargain. Even if he scores 25 goals,
that's right.
That's a bargain.
And
right?
then if he doesn't, then you're not hurt by the contract. It's not one that just hampers you in terms of the salary cap. I think it's just a safe deal overall.
And I love the trend, right?
Yes.
Again, I love the improvement year in and year out, right?
That's right.
Came over from Seattle after a career year, had a career year in his first year in Boston, followed that up with an unbelievable season. Again,
Yes.
the first 30-goal scorer for the Bruins, not named Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, or David Pastrnak.
That's right.
It's Louis Eriksson. And a guy to reach 33 goals or more, last guy to do that was Phil Kessel. I mean, it's been a long time since you've had another guy who's put up those kind of goal-scoring numbers.
I also think if it is sustainable, what an advantage the Bruins are in at that point. Like if he is sort of I hate to bring these two up, but if it's a McDavid Draisaitl, right? Not to that level, but if it's Pasta and Geekie and that's your 1-2 punch, you have so much flexibility now in terms of what else you're bringing in free agency. And it helps the overall team, obviously. We talked about this earlier. I think this team needs a defenseman still.
Yeah.
Another winger. You need more. You need a lot. You need a lot. The cupboard's not bare, but you do need more.
No, and again, and I think, too, like, you know, I would like to see a day where Morgan Geekie's not part of the 1-2 punch. I'd like to see him more in maybe the middle six because now you've lengthened your lineup.
Yes.
Right? And you got a guy who is a 30-goal scorer, you know, a little bit lower in the lineup maybe, you know, and then you get somebody else alongside David Pastrnak.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you'd like to see as well.
Okay, so
right?
checking your temperature here. You're excited for the Geekie.
I am.
Red Sox. Fell 5-3 to the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
This is now their third straight series, Adam, that they've lost. Where are we here, taking the temperature and the state of the Sox?
Yeah, it's it's been a disappointing year.
Yeah.
Right? To say the least.
Yeah.
Disappointing series against the Blue Jays. You know, after you know how things finished up on the West Coast, getting swept by the Angels, coming back home. You want to build some momentum at home. Played okay at home this year, right? You're 22-17 going into the series against the Blue Jays. You lose 2 out of 3. Game 1, you laid an egg, which was tough to see, especially since you got a quality start from Brian Bayo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But the offense just wasn't there. Important to point out, you did not have Marcelo Meyer in this series because he was on the bereavement list.
That's right.
Right? So that's yet another player that you didn't have at your disposal. All of that said, you know, the run scoring for this team, right? Because we saw in game 2, 15-1.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the stat, you know, that we've been following, and TC put out the latest stat. You know, they've scored 399 runs this year, which is 4th in the American League. 140 have come in 11 of those games where they've scored 10 or more runs. They're 11-0 in those games, but they're 30-44 in the other games where they're averaging just about 3 runs per game. And I will point out, too, again, you miss Rafael Devers big time. There's no question about that, right? Best bat in your lineup.
Yes.
But during that 6-game losing streak, they only scored 16 runs, right?
Right.
So no Rafael Devers, no run production. They had a 6-game winning streak. You know how many runs they scored during that 6-game winning streak? 17.
Yeah.
So this hasn't just been a Rafael Devers, without Rafael Devers issue, we'll call it.
Yeah.
It's been an issue all season long. And they were around 500 when Alex Bregman got hurt.
Right.
So, you know, again, you like to point to those injuries in the trade as the reason why things are going the way they are.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's been a little bit of everything.
I hear you. You're not wrong. However, I do think timing matters. My beef with the Devers, most fans were upset with the return for the Devers trade, which I get that too, okay? But it was timing for me, which was like, why'd you do it now?
Right.
Why not wait till the trade deadline and see what this, at the time you traded Devers, this team was cooking. And so I just think since then, you're absolutely correct with the numbers. And I think a lot of us are putting too much stock in, well, you take Devers out of the lineup, now this team stinks. No, that's not the entire truth. But I do think the timing crushed this team.
I think that's part of it. But you did win the opener in Seattle.
You did.
Right? But you're 4-8 without Devers.
That's right. And that's all I'm saying. I just think the timing-wise. Also, I'm looking right now at some of these series that they should have won or at least been more competitive. 0-5 against the Angels, 4-3 against the White Sox, 4-3 against the O's, 1-2 against the Twins. Like, you're going to look back at this stuff and be like, these are series you should have been way better. White Sox, Angels.
But that's who they are.
That's who they are. Inconsistent.
Right.
It's maddening. All right, reportedly, the Toronto Raptors offered the number 9 pick to the Celtics for Derek White. Reportedly. I heard this on draft night, too. So here's the tweet. The Celtics laughed. Ha, 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 ha.
Oh, there he is laughing
at
right
the
there.
Raptors. There he is.
A live look.
Brad Stevens chuckling. Zach Lowe, quote, there are reports that the Raptors offered the number 9 pick for Derek White. I'm told that that's true, but it happened a month and a half after Tatum got hurt, and Boston laughed, scoffed. Ha! We need more than number 9 for Derek White. Listen, I'll be honest with you personally. I'm really glad they didn't trade him. I've said on this show over and over and over again, I think your new big 3 now is Tatum healthy, Jaylen Brown healthy, and Derek White. I really do. And I think everything else is ancillary.
I love Derek White.
I do
don't
too.
know why you would trade him.
He plays basketball
Because he makes
the right
a lot
way.
of money?
Well, he makes a lot of money, and you can get a good return back for him.
Yeah, you could. But
now, the Raptors doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because they're not a contender. A contending team, it makes sense.
Yeah, you're going to get Jason Tatum back eventually. Right? He is a superstar in this league. He might not come back next year, but he's coming back the year after that. And if he's coming back the year after that, you need a team around him.
Yes.
You can't be starting from square one.
That's right.
So you need at least a Derek White, a Jaylen Brown, and then you start rebuilding around Jason Tatum again, just like you did before with Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the pieces around them are ancillary, but I think the big 3, we know you need Brown and Tatum, but I think Derek White, keeping him is smart because you do have a true big 3, and in today's NBA, you need all the above. So the fans were a little split on this. Here's Zach. He tweets, it's wild to see some people saying Boston shouldn't or should have taken this trade. Derek White is a top 25-30 guy in the league. No chance a 9th pick is enough. So that's one perspective. The tweets kept rolling in, though. This is from Florida Now 1. At this point, Derek is 30. I mean, how many peak years left? 2 or 3? Next year's a total loss for the Celtics. They may look back and say the 9th pick would have been nicer long term, but it doesn't matter.
All right, so we're having the same conversation when you draft a guy who's 20 years old and then Jason Tatum all of a sudden is 30 and it's like, well, how many peak years does he have left?
That's right.
And the guy's not even ready for prime time yet.
That's right.
You know, you gotta pick and choose here. Which direction you want to go. If Jason Tatum's on your roster, you got to build around him, and you need players like Derek White. You can't be trading for the number.
Yes, and also, like, let's be honest, because we all watch the games. The guy can play.
He's awesome.
So I don't know what I'm getting with the 9th pick. I could get the next Michael Jordan, great, but I could get the next Zion.
Well, to your point, the next Michael Jordan could be in the 2nd round, right?
Right.
You talked about Nikola Jokic.
Yes.
Right.
Well, right. But I guess my point is, you know what you have in Derek White, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a known commodity.
It's a known commodity. He's consistent. You won a title with him. He plays basketball the right way. He's a beloved teammate. He's a locker room dude. The city loves him. Hang on to Derek White.
Right.
I mean, I get you're sort of rebuilding the roster around your star players.
You're retooling. You're not rebuilding.
You're retooling around your star players, but he's one of them.
Yeah.
Keep him.
Yeah, I agree.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It's nice to see we figured things out today.
Yeah, we have.
That's great.
We haven't really. Have we disagreed on much? Not yet. It's coming.
I think we have, but you're too kind, and you say, "Well, I hear." That's what you do. I hear you.
I do give
That's what you do. I hear you, but you're completely wrong.
Yeah. Credit to my wife for that. Travis, you don't make me feel heard. Okay. I hear you, but you're wrong. That's Adam, not you, honey. You're always right.
That's right.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk more Red Sox. The good news is it's still June, so there's time to turn it around.
Barely.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Barely.
Roll with us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Remember, get the latest up-to-date live. We've got Boston sports headlines, along with your daily dose of trending sports and social topics every weekday right here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. Catch us at 8 a.m. right here on Nesson and 9 a.m. on Nesson Nation every Monday through Friday. Welcome back to Boston Has Entered the Chat inside the Salem 5 studios. Travis Thomas here with Adam Pellerin. And Adam, now we're talking about the state of the Sox, state of the Red Sox. I mean, look, man, another series loss for them. 3rd straight series loss for them. Oh, my gosh. 3 of the next 4 series for the Sox are at home. Here come the Reds. Where are we at with these Red Sox right now? Technically, it's still June. So
last day of June.
I mean, there's still time, but I'm not loving what we're seeing.
I mean, where to start? Let's just start with.
Let's unpack it all.
What we saw most recently, where I got this little sunburn.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, I was sidelined.
Yeah, I see.
This weekend, the Blue Jays series.
You're bronzy.
I missed the. Yeah, I got some makeup covering up the redness right there, right at the airline. But you can still see it, right? I am bronzing, as Dennis Eckersley used to say.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, you expect more in Game 1 of the series, to say the least, right? After getting swept.
Yes.
In Anaheim, that was unexpected, right? Well, and again, all right. Now I'm going to rewind a little further.
Okay.
Go back to the beginning of the West Coast trip after the Rafael Devers trade, right? Red Sox are, everyone's shell-shocked by the whole thing. You come out and you win Game 1 of that series.
That's
right? You lose Game 2, Walker Buehler on the mound, get to that a little bit in a second.
By the way, no shame losing to the Giants because they're a really good team.
Well, that was the Mariners, that first series.
Oh, you're talking about, I thought you were going all the way back.
I went all the way back to the Mariners.
Okay,
they
Mariners.
kicked off the series, the trip with the Mariners. They won Game 1, lost Game 2. Garrett Crochet on the mound, they win Game 3. They win Game 1 of the Giants series.
That's right.
They win Game 1 of the Giants series, and then they go on to lose the next 5 games on that trip.
Yes.
Absolute killer.
Yes.
Games that you should have won. A couple of one-run losses in that, a couple of walk-offs in that, and so the same problem that we've seen from this team all season long, the one-run games, 19 one-run losses,
Errors.
most in Major League Baseball. Errors, the base running mistakes,
Yep.
the situational hitting. And it's frustrating because you're right there, right? You flip the script on those one-run games, we're having a much different conversation here about this team.
Well, they
right?
did flip the script for a couple weeks.
Well,
they were
did.
hot. They're in a win streak. They're in the wild card. They're climbing in the AL East. The Yankees are falling apart. And then it reared its ugly head again.
And
errors, base running, all the things you said. Bats go cold, all of it.
And again, and I think I referenced this stat in our trending, about the Red Sox and the feast or famine, right? Because you lose 9-0 in game one, you win 15-1 in game two. It's just like this offense can't be stopped. And then you come back and you manage to score 3 runs, but there was a couple opportunities there. You're not able to push a couple more runs across, tie the game, and then they end up losing the finale. 399 runs scored this year, Travis. Okay? 140 of those have come in 11 games where they've scored 10 or more runs.
Wow.
They're 11-0 in those games.
Wow.
But they're 30-44 in the other 74 games. So they're averaging just barely 3 runs per game in those games. And again, it's a feast or famine type of thing. And so why is that? Well, no Rafael Devers, obviously. Right? They've been without Alex Bregman for a while, obviously. And then you got the young guys in the lineup, Roman Anthony's starting to come around. Right? We see, Alex Cora talked about it, the quality of the at-bats. He's not chasing pitches, and he's hitting high in the order too, right? Young kid like that hitting that high in the order is because he's way more mature beyond his years.
I like him a lot.
Right? Yeah, and again, he's starting to get results too. He had 6 hits in the series against the Blue Jays. But you lose the series, and now you're in a spot where you're 3 games back of the wild card. You're 8 games back in the division. You got teams in front of you in the wild card. You got a lot of work to do. You got to start winning series. You have to. If you want to stay in the mix.
So I mentioned
you're about a month before the trade deadline.
Well, let's not even go trade deadline. Let's go All-Star break here, because I'm glad you brought that up. You got to start winning these series, right? So a lot of these are at home. So we know the Reds are coming to town. Then you go to the Nationals. They stink. Rockies and Rays at home. These are series. Outside of maybe the Rays, you have to win these series. But we've been talking about this team playing down the competition. And I gave the stat earlier. I don't even know where it is anymore. Here it is. You didn't beat the Angels at all this year. You were terrible against the White Sox, the O's, the Twins. These are a lot of series we'll look back on and say they should have been better against these bad teams. I look, if we're looking for positive signs here, Adam, we're looking for optimism. The schedule from now until the All-Star break is favorable, but what the hell? What are you going to do against these teams? Because you look at it and you say, okay, this is a schedule that, and you're mostly at home, you should be in good shape. But then when the smoke clears, you lost the series.
Right.
So it's tough. You're trying to look at a light at the end of the tunnel, but this team, as the season has progressed to this point, there's no consistency. So how can you bank on it?
You need more offense. You need more offense. And so, where do you get that offense? Well, if you're just looking at the current roster, Alex Bregman continues to work his way back from injury. There's no date on a rehab assignment. In fact, there might not even be a rehab assignment, Travis. Well, no. That's a good thing.
Okay.
Because he'd be back in the lineup.
God.
Right? So there's no rehab assignment. He just comes back, right? He takes some live BP. He gets back into it. But as more time goes on, when he's not on the field, you might need a couple of games there. They're saying after the All-Star break, maybe not, right? That's the good, right? The other one is Masataka Yoshida. He starts a rehab assignment tomorrow in Worcester. Okay, so you're looking at Masa. Is he going to be the savior? No, but he's a guy who makes a lot of contact. And what have they done a lot with this year? Strikeout. What have they done more than anybody else in baseball? Strike out with runners in scoring position. So you got to put the ball in play. He's a contact guy. That'll help the lineup. So you get those 2 guys back. That's a start.
It is.
And then you look ahead and you say, all right, well, if those 2 guys hypothetically help you and you win some games, you win some series, then you're still in the mix. Then what do you do if you're Craig Breslow, right? Do you bring somebody? Do you bring a Josh Naylor in, right? Which is a name that's out there at first base.
I wouldn't hate that. I don't hate that move. I think these series are going to teach us a lot of what the Sox will do in the second half of the season and also obviously at the trade deadline. Let's start with the Reds, because this is a decent team. And you talked about this pitching matchup. Brother, Crochet against Burns tonight is must-see.
The pig versus the prospect.
That's must-see TV, right?
That's the headline.
That's the marquee. And I think it's must-see TV. And as always, I'm going to be only consistent. Crochet is going to shove, okay? Is he going to get run support? That's the question. So you have Crochet tonight, you have Fitz, and then you have Bayo. Can I get 2 out of 3 here, Adam?
You should. Yeah, you should. You're at home, and again, you look at the starting rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, Bayo's been your number 2, right now with Lucas Giolito, right? They're kind of like 1A, 2A and 2B, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Right? Crochet cleared number 1. Fitz, first start back, looked okay against the Angels. Only gave you 4 innings, 83 pitches, right? You want more than that, but, he's sort of building back up. So hopefully you get more. With Bayo, he got you a quality start despite sort of a rough start against the Blue Jays in Game 1 of that series.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get from Crochet, but you're right, the run support. The other thing too, moving forward, we're talking big picture of this team is Walker Buehler, right? And just to touch on that for a second, pitching in the series finale, another rough start for him. You don't know what his future is.
Yeah.
He said it too. He's like, I'm not only fighting for a spot in the rotation, I'm fighting for a spot in the league. Close to a 7 ERA, right? And so that was unexpected this year. And the other thing too, Tanner Houck.
Yeah.
Right? On the injured list, rehab. Another tough rehab outing for the Woo Sox. Right? 3 2/3, gave up 4 runs, couple home runs, wild pitch. So he's not quite there yet either. So, you expected a lot out of Tanner Houck. You expected something out of Walker Buehler. You haven't gotten that. And that's contributed, to what we're seeing.
Of course it has. But I will say this. All right, let's stay with the Reds. You and I both said if you can get 2 out of 3 against them, you win a series, you're feeling a little better about yourself. Go to the Nationals, home against the Rockies. Those are 2 of the worst teams in baseball.
Got to win.
So if you can win those series, you get your confidence back going into that Rays series before the All-Star break. Then this team could feel at the All-Star break, conceivably, knock on wood, hey, you know what? We've gone on the roller coaster the first half of the season. Let's get some consistency. Let's get healthy. Bregman and others, come on in. Be buyers at the deadline, and who knows?
Yep. The final push, right? I mean, that's kind of what it feels like, right?
Is it the final push or the final countdown? We'll find out.
Yeah, we will.
I also look at Alex Cora right now. Man, my man he's stressed out, and I get it. But again, technically, although it's like the last day of June, it is still June. There is still time, this schedule is soft, whatever that means.
Yeah.
This schedule's soft.
You can't look at it that way though, because
I know.
Again, to your point, not playing, as well as they should against, some of the worst teams,
Yes.
in the game.
Yes.
Right? But I will say this: you know who has the best AL East record?
Who?
The Red Sox are 16-13. They're the best division
Come
record
on.
in the division. Yeah. Best. How about that?
This is maddening.
Yeah.
Maddening. Hey, thanks for watching. We always appreciate you guys rolling with us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. The party continues on Nessa Nation. So come on over. We're there till 10. The water's great. Jump on in, baby. Adam Pellerin, Travis Thomas. Come on. I mean, we're very musical here. Roll with us daily, 8 a.m. here on Nessa, 9 a.m. on Nessa Nation. Come on.